The Murli is a very important means to keep our awareness and meditation fresh and powerful. The Murli is the verbal guidelines from Shiv Baba and Brahma Baba to help us move from a physical consciousness connected to the world of form to a spiritual consciousness connected to subtle awareness of thoughts, feelings, attitudes, and perceptions. The Murli helps us understand God's, Baba's perception and attitude towards all the different aspects that make up our life. Baba reveals the different relationships that we can forge with him and how each relationship strengthens qualities and values within us. Baba tells us of our soul journey through time and what the soul would have experienced in the different ages. As the Murli was originally spoken in India to a gathering of those predominantly from a Hindu background, many of the analogies and stories from that culture are used to explain universal truths. However, each culture is rich in analogies and stories which mirror and contain these universal truths. Part of the journey of spirituality is to unravel the deeper codes, signals, and keys to higher consciousness that are held within the Murli. Each Murli will contain a signal that will personally help each student to unlock their spiritual consciousness. It is fascinating to look out for our own personal next step on the path to complete truth.
Om Shanti. A very warm welcome to the new students who are beginning to study Bapdada's Murlis. Even the very term Bapdada perhaps raises questions in your minds, but we're talking about the one above, Shiva, the Supreme, and the instrument Brahma Baba, through whom the Murlis were spoken. And from 1965 through till 1969, the Murlis that were spoken every day in Mount Abu were recorded and transcribed, and we study those and revise those till now. These Murlis carry the foundation of all the teachings of the Brahma Kumaris, soul and God and the cycle and the tree of humanity, the philosophy of karma, meditation. All of these subjects are covered in a lot of detail so that we can apply them in our practical lives and see what the impact of this is. We also have what we call the Avyakt Murlis, which was spoken after 1969 when Brahma Baba ascended to his angelic state, and these are Murlis that were spoken through a trance medium, Dadi Gulzar, and these Murlis are the foundation for the application of those teachings in our lives. So they cover all the aspects of the virtues we should have within us. They cover all the aspects of the spiritual power that can be developed and how the spiritual power can be used in our life in different ways at this moment. They also cover all the different types of illusions and falsehoods we have been exposed to and are influenced with. And so they cover a very, very vast range of practical topics that are very relevant to us today. And the amazing thing for me is that although the Sakar, the Murli spoken through the physical form of Brahma Baba, was spoken way, way back in the 60s, it's incredible how relevant they are. And the study of these each day forms the basis of spiritual development in our own life and our practice of meditation. Without the Murlis, it would be difficult to have newness in our meditation continually. And the Avyakt Murlis, the subtle Murlis, these of course carry a lot of depth of knowledge about the detail of meditation and how to be able to make our meditation more and more powerful. And so I know that as you continue your course of study of the Murlis, you'll begin to experience the depth of spirituality, the power of spirituality, and the development and unfoldment of your own inner potential. Enjoy your journey. Thank you. Om Shanti.
Hi, my name is Samantha Fraser, and I've been meditating with the Brahma Kumaris for over 25 years, and I've been asked to talk to you today about the cultural references in the Murli. And so I was just reflecting when I first came to my first Murli class, actually, and as I listened, there were many words that I didn't understand. They were words that were in Hindi. And at the end of the lesson, I quickly asked if there was some kind of glossary or a translation of those words, and fortunately enough there was. And so do ask for a glossary when you finish the course, because that will enable you to understand some of those words that come up in the Murli. So that wasn't too difficult. But what I began to see was that there were some cultural references, a context that wasn't very familiar to me. And there were many stories that I heard that were very interesting, very significant, but I hadn't heard before. And I think one thing to point out is that before 1973, 72, most of the centers, all of the centers in fact, were in India. And so there's lots of references to the Hindu religion because that was the context at the time. And so what you find is that there are many stories related or associated to that religion. And so what I did was that I Googled many of them to find out what the spiritual significance was, and I found them very meaningful. What I also observed was that many of those stories were linked to a particular point that came up in the Murli, and it was almost there to emphasize that point of knowledge. And so what I quickly learned to do was not to get stuck in the story and not really understanding the cultural implications, but I focused more on the specific point of knowledge. Yes, I Googled, I got to understand the significance of the stories. Some of them I really, really like. I have a few favorites. But more importantly, I think, is really to understand what is it that Baba's trying to say in that part of the Murli. How do I understand that? So going forward, I would advise you not to get lost in the stories, but really to focus on the specific points of knowledge that are helping us to change and transform. So I hope this was useful, and good luck with your spiritual journey, and continue studying.
Hi, the Murli has many strands of information, guidance and inspiration. One helpful way to access this powerful document is through focused note-taking, helping us to highlight areas such as points covering spiritual self-awareness, or looking for guidance and clarification in ways which we can interact in a new way with others positively and effectively. It's also helpful to find out looking for note-taking and collecting points that highlight how Baba supports us and guides us through his various roles, such as our father, mother, friend, teacher, etc. Also looking and finding new slants and reminders of the drama cycle and the tree of life, helping us to come across interesting symbols and analogies which catch our attention, possibly for the first time. Noting and finding interesting aspects that would be useful to think on further at another time, or a particular line or direction that stands out as something which we should particularly pay attention to. Of course, there are many other areas which we might focus on and meet our particular interests that we're drawn to, but that would be up to our own particular study. These notes then can be used or revisited for our reflective study and for our particular meditations. One particular creative way to use some of our notes that we create would be through the creation of an affirmation to be used whenever there is time. An affirmation is a short collected series of thoughts which bring together the essence of your thoughts and study. It enables you to make your thoughts more concise and memorable. Affirmations help us recall information and at the same time enable us to experience the meaning and power of that particular content. So let's create a possible affirmation format using possibly about 5 lines, or maybe less or more. It depends on your particular inclination. So line 1, Baba my, and so from the Murli I might like to insert friend, Baba my friend. Line 2 reminds me that I am, and from the Murli Baba might be indicating that I'm his special child. So I would put in, reminds me that I am his special child. Line 3, I know that I have to be more, and from the Murli, Baba's highlighting and drawing our attention to be aware of my thoughts. So I know I have to be more attentive to my thinking. Line 4, with regular meditation, I can become more, and from the Murli, I would probably draw clear and stable. So with regular meditation, I become more clear and stable. And possibly the last line, a new deep point for me to think on, something that I'd never thought about, or it's new for me. Baba, his role as a magician. So a new deep point for me to think on is Baba's role as a magician. This particular affirmation format can be used as a knowledge reminder and used also as a meditation.
Om Shanti everyone. I just wanted to spend a minute sharing with you about the significance and value of the Murli on this spiritual journey. For me, the Murli is the foundation of a student life, so it becomes the basis through which I operate on a daily basis. And I say it should be because it's not always the case. You know, we will develop our own relationship with the Murli, but the one thing I will say is we have a timetable that we tend to follow when we listen to the Murli, and that for me is one of the best ways to be able to digest the Murli. And yes, you can read it as well and experiment for yourselves to see what works for you, but listening and reading, you will definitely notice a difference. And I think one additional thing to pay a lot of attention to is our responsibility of just making sure that the vessels that of the mind and the intellect and the heart are clean when we're thinking about or listening to the Murli, and that way we'll be able to digest these high vibration words. And finally, one thing I would definitely recommend to anybody listening to the Murli for the first time, in order to develop a relationship with it and to have the faith in the Murli, you will find certain aspects of it very appealing, and just focus on those aspects, not the ones that don't necessarily pull you, and out of the ones that do pull you, just work with them by applying them in that particular day, and that's when the magic of the Murli really takes place. Thank you. Om Shanti.
My life revolves around learning that I'm a spiritual being, and the Murli works for me in the same way that a strong cup of coffee works to jumpstart the day for someone who gets a buzz out of drinking it. A good example of how the Murli works for me is that I had a tendency to have expectations of people and circumstances and things. And as you know, life normally never turns out in the same way that one expects. So I've learned to be more content and accept myself and others. Earlier today, while speaking to somebody about the impact of their choices, I caught myself being judgmental because I allowed myself to be caught up in their story. And I became silent and simply listened without judgment.
The importance of the Murli to me is I really do feel that God speaks to me. You know, if I have a situation going on, I often find the answers in the Murli. I like to take notes. It gives me a focus for what's being said, and I enjoy the discussion afterwards with the rest of the class. The conducted meditation at the beginning and the end, really invokes the Supreme Soul for me. Words that God has spoken truly come alive. After listening to them early, I truly feel a sense of being centered, of being uplifted, of well-being, and it really gives me power for the rest of my day. In lockdown, I've maintained that discipline, getting up early, having a shower, sitting down with my coffee and notebook, enjoying the class. And, now I just find that difficulties and problems and anxieties and depression and loneliness, are far less likely to come because I practice meditation during the day, and I remember some of the things that God says, and they're deeply helpful. So good luck to you on your own spiritual journey. Om Shanti.